my profile? You see it? Yes? Okay. All right, so where were we before we were rudely interrupted? Right, so as I was saying, that once we install the RHC, right, we log out. I logged out because I was logged in for the other course, right? I logged out. I'm going to try and log in to the brand new account that I just created. So given the -L will ask me to log in. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to try and log in with the old account, right? Oh wait, pass. Oh, maybe set up. Let me see. Wait a minute. OpenShift. Blah blah blah. Okay. Yes, I want to. So this is asking me, are you using your own instance of OpenShift, installed on your machine, on your own server, or are you using the public one, right? So it's a public one. It's the one out there, OpenShift.redhat.com. Oh, see, it's trying to use CS 4550 Spring 2015. See that? That's not what I want. Let me stop that. What was the So OpenShift, RHC, change account. I believe it's option login, blah blah blah. RHC command tool console login, blah blah blah. L. Okay, all right. You have to provide the username. Okay, got it. Let's start another shell. Oops. Away. Copy. Paste. So the username, what was this name? It was CS5610, right? .sp 2015, right? At gmail.com. Okay, it's going to say, well, are you going to host this in the cloud? I said yes. And yes, it's using the correct account now, right? So I'm going to give it the password, and the password. Okay, I think that worked. And it says, okay, create a store or token, blah blah blah, allows you to start using the token, so you don't have to log in every single time. Okay, so yes, create a token for me. It says this token is good for 1 month. So in a month, it'll ask you again to log in, right? Okay, so do you want me to generate an SSH key for you and upload it? It says yes, I want to generate it. So it uploads it. So this box over here that it was waiting for us is actually, I don't need it anymore because it already uploaded it. So I'm just going to go, no, I don't want to upload. I'm just going to go and continue. And there it is. That's the URL we had chosen, right? Node.js-CS5610sp2015.rhcloud.com. Yeah. And if you have a domain, you can point it to this, right? So if you have your own domain, right, and you want to host everything here, then you can just point it here. If you click on this, it'll go to the the boilerplate, right? The default application that they gave you is just an index page. That's all it is. Right? It's an index page, and also a boilerplate server. If you remember, on Wednesday we created a server, right? We were adding, removing developers, right? We were posting, updating, deleting, getting. Remember that? We did that on Wednesday. Let's try and replicate that. Also give us a chance to review. Let's try and replicate what we did on Wednesday, but have this run remotely. Okay, there's several considerations that you need to make for it to run remotely, especially if you want to be able to run it in both environments, right, remotely and locally. Right, there's some considerations that we need to do. Let's see. All right, so that's our application. We do have a public key, I hope. Wait, with those settings. Yes, this is the default key that was generated by the tool, and it uploaded it. It should match the key that is stored locally under .ssh. Okay, so if you do ls.ssh, it should match this, what's in here. Okay, and you can regenerate it, and then you copy and paste it. You can add a new key, right? And paste it here. Anyway, so you can also use, you can remotely log in to the server, right? If you want to look at logs, or you want to be able to debug what's going on. We're not going to go into that today. Right, and we can look at the, oops, sorry. It says, wait, go in. No, that's not what I want to do. Settings, no, not settings. Applications, where's the, is it here? Settings. There's an account. Where is my link? Started, not settings, support. Where are you? Node.js, applications. These are all of them. Access logs. Save. I want to be able to connect to it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. So if you go to applications and you click on your application, it'll tell you where your source code is. Right. You can copy this. You can copy the source code. Basically, what it does is that it hosts all your files on a Git repository, right? Which you can clone down. You can copy it and clone it down to your local file system so you can work on it locally. Right? So let's do that. I'm going to copy that. And from here, I'm going to say git clone, and I'm going to give it that URL. Right? And what it's going to do is going to create a directory based on the name of the application. Right? It's going to download all those files and put them in that directory. Right? So I'm going to do that, cloning into Node.js. Right? So that's the name of the application we had, giving it Node.js. If we go in there, we see that indeed there's an index file. That's the index file we're seeing right now. There is a startup. There's an initial server.js. It's equivalent to our server app.js that we were playing around on Wednesday. We're going to blow that away. Right? We're going to make our own from scratch. Right? Plus, there is some any new modules that you would need to install would be in here, node modules. For instance, locally, we need Express, right? We're going to run it locally, right? So we're going to need to install Express, right? Notice that it has no modules, right? There's another thing here is the package JSON. This package JSON is the equivalent, if you've done Java implementations, this is equivalent of the POM file, pom.xml. It describes the application, it describes, who the author is, where it is being hosted, where the Git repository is, any dependencies of this project with other projects, right, or any other modules. Notice that it says that it depends on Express, right? Basically, what it's saying is that remotely, right, remotely the server where it's running, it is using the Express module, right? Even though it's not listed here on the node modules. Even though it's not listed here, right? It has it installed over there. Any new packages that we might install, we have to make sure that we have them locally and that they're also remotely, right? But we don't want to have to copy these libraries back and forth. Instead, we're going to maintain it using this package JSON. We're going to say, hey, locally I have these packages. Remotely, you should also have these packages. Okay. So we'll edit that in a minute. And we have server.js. Now, locally, I can't run that server.js, right? If I try to run that server.js, it's going to complain. It says you don't have Express, okay? Locally, I don't have Express. Remotely, I do, right, in the remote server. Let's open up that file just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to open the website, and it's Where was it? Under Jose, was it? Was it Node.js? Node.js. It's that one, right? Okay, yeah, so it's this server. And so this server is the server that is currently running on the remote server. Yes? The cloud service, basically what it does is it executes, it says node, and then on this file. Okay, so we need to put our server in this file, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this just to keep it around, okay? But I'm going to blow away everything. So we're going to start from scratch, right? We're going to try and replicate what we had on Wednesday, and also serve us as a refresh on what we did, okay? I'm going to go to Express.js, and we'll try and redo what we did on Wednesday. So let's go to the API references for the latest one, and I'll copy what we had Wednesday. Copy that. I'll just paste it here. So I know that this is only going to work locally, right? Notice that it's listening to a port 3000. That's probably not the remote port where they're listening at, right? Probably listening at just port 80, right? Also, they're listening at probably listening at a completely different IP address than we are, right? We're listening to localhost, right? It's 127.0.0.1. So yeah, so this might work locally. Only that I still depend on Express, right? So I need to have Express locally. If I try to execute this, it'll still say that I don't have Express. Okay. Now we know how to fix that. We could just say npm install Express. The problem with just running this is that we are in a repository, right? We are inside of Git, right? Which if you see, I thought there was going to be a Git repository here. If any new files that I put in here, notice that I am in a repository. See, it says you modified server.js. You have a new file called server copy.js, right? If I do npm install, right, it's going to identify my new Express directory as new files, right? And it's gonna want me to push those to the remote server, right? But they're already in the remote server, right? So what I would want to do is to have Git just ignore, right? Ignore all those libraries. Those are libraries, or those are DLLs, right, and jar files and whatnot. We don't want to have to replicate those in source control. We only want source in source control, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a file. We're going to create a file, an ignore file. We're going to say add. Wait, how can I create one? Let's see. If we go see my documents. No, it's not documents. I want to go to Jose. How do I go to Jose? Why's my? Oh, here we go. This PC. See users. Jose, there we go. So in here, in my file, in Node.js, right? This is where we're doing our code. I want to create a new file, and that file I want to call it .git ignore. Okay, and actually I don't want that .text, but Explorer is not going to let me remove it. It's going to complain, right? So I'm going to have to do that from the command line. So there's git ignore. I'm just going to rename git ignore to git ignore without the .text. Okay. Now I can go back here and refresh, and now I see the git ignore. Right. In here, we're going to paste in here all the files and directories that we want Git to ignore. It says, don't even look at anything that is under node modules. Right? Anything under there, just ignore it. Okay. So now I can come here and use npm install Express. That's going to download the libraries for Express and going to copy them onto node modules. Right? That's what we did on Wednesday. Right? We did that on Wednesday, correct? Okay. But there's one more thing that I need to do. And what I would like npm to automatically update package.json and and record this as a dependency. Right? It says, hey, I depend on this module. But remember if you look at package JSON, right? Notice that there's a dependencies here. It says that indeed we are depending on Express, right? Right. If I do npm install Express, right? Oh, actually, I don't even need to tell it that to install Express, because if I just say npm install all by itself, right? What's going to do is it's going to open up package JSON. This is what the server does remotely, right? It says npm install. It opens this package JSON, right? And it reads the dependencies. It says, oh, you depend on Express, right? And it looks in the node modules, right? It says, is Express already installed? Yes, it is. Okay, I'm not going to do anything. Okay. If it's not, it's going to download and install it locally. You're going to copy it on the node modules. Yes. So that's where we are, right? We are in that state, right? We don't have Express, right? Notice that I don't have in node modules. I don't have Express, right? So if we do npm install, it's going to open package JSON and look at the dependency. It says, oh, you need Express. I'm going to download it. It's not in your node modules. So there it is. It installed Express, right? If we do ls node modules, notice that Express is there now, right? It's as if I would have typed npm space Express, install Express. Everybody okay? Everybody good? All right. All right, so we're pretty much synchronized with the server, except that I have my own server JS, right? Let's try now locally, see if it works. All right, so it looks like it's listening at port 3000. Let's verify that indeed it is listening at that. We can say localhost 3000. It says hello world, right? That's where we started on Wednesday, right? That's where we started on Wednesday. A couple more things that we did. What did we do? Let's see. In the server, on the server, right? What do we do? Well, we did a whole bunch of things, but definitely this won't work if I push it to the server, right? Because the server definitely it's not going to be listening at 3000. I want it to be, I want to replace what's there with what I have and make sure that we're synchronized, right? So what I need to do is be able to understand and know what port and what IP address is the remote server actually using, right? For that, I can look at the original server copy and note that the port and the IP address that are being used remotely are being passed to my application through an environment variable. Okay, so I could use those environment variables to be able to identify whether I'm running locally or running remotely, right? So I can copy that real quick, and I can just paste it here and say, okay, var the IP address. It's either going to be this if it exists, right? This is only going to exist when I run this remotely, right? But locally, it's not going to exist, right? So if this is not if it's not defined, if it's undefined, then instead I want to use 127.0.0.1, which is localhost, right? For the port, right? Again, if I'm running remotely, this works, right? It's a port that they're listening at. But locally, I would like to use 3000, right? If this is undefined, then listen can then use these variables to say I want to listen to port and IP. Okay. Notice that listen was not we weren't using IP before. It was because it was using the default IP address, which is just localhost, right? Now we're explicitly telling it what IP to use. Okay, everybody okay? All right, so now let me try this running again, it should do the same thing, right? If I just refresh, it works, right? But now if I push it to the remote server, it should work the same. It should work the same. So I'm going to stop here. We're going to push this to the remote server and make sure that we're synchronized. I'm going to say git status to see what we have so far. Looks like we modified server.js. We have a brand new file, git ignore, right? We have a brand new file, server copy.js. Notice that it's not reporting the fact that we have node modules. the express libraries, right? Because we told it to ignore it. Just don't even look there, right? So, okay, so those are different. I'm going to say git add dot to add the new files and do a git status again to see what's there. Okay, so it looks like I have that new file. There's a rename file and there is a modified file, right? So we're going to push this. We'll say commit, git commit, am, replaced server with my own. Okay, and we're going to push. So the push, this is going to send all my files. Going to stop the server. If I try to hit the remote server while this is going, where is it? Right, if I try to hit the server while it's trying to deploy, it'll be temporarily unavailable. Okay. All right, so it says it's starting Node.js. Okay, it started already. If I hit it now, notice that it says hello world. Right, it's exactly the same output that we have locally. Right, so let's put these side by side. All right, so this is remotely and this is local. Remote, local, works the same. Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. Okay. All right. So we have a starting point. It works the same in either place. All right. So let's throw this away, and let's create our let's create something different. Let's create websites. So we have websites, and the websites are going to be an array. And say name of the website. So here you have site 1. Let's do something real quick. It's 4, 3, 2. Okay, and let's do an event handler that listens for a get, and it listens for a URL that looks something like this: API/websites. Right? So that means that if I see an incoming get request that has this pattern, I'm going to return the websites. Right? So we're going to say, oh, sorry. Remember, I don't like plurals. And I'm going to say, I'm going to do response. I want to send back the websites. Okay, right. Notice that we added an API in front of this. I believe we didn't do that on Wednesday, right? It's a good practice. Well, first that it allows us to organize our URLs better, right? It also gives a hint to whoever is using this URL, right? That this is not meant for human consumption, right? These are not web pages, right? These are not HTML pages. It's not static content meant for humans, right? It's instead meant to be programmatically accessed, right? It's providing some data point, some data, right? As arrays, as JSON or whatnot, right? And they're presumably accessed through some kind of AJAX mechanism. Make sense? All right. Also, so API is a very common prefix. Some other people like to put REST, right, saying that this is a RESTful API. Right? I don't like API. It's shorter. All right, let's see if this works. Let me restart the server. So if we ask for locally, we ask for API websites, it works, right? So everybody good. What else? Let's see. We also had a whole bunch of other things, right? We had one where we could provide some kind of ID. For us, the ID is somewhat of an index, right? An index into the array. Right now, we're not using that ID to query any primary key in any database, right? But it works the same. It's the same functionality, though, right? All right, so we provided some kind of ID, and we're going to parse that from the request parameters ID. Right, we're going to use that as an index into my array. Yes? Right. So that if I run it now and I ask for a particular website, website 3, There it is, right? Returns that particular website. Everybody okay? All right. We also added the ability of posting and delete and whatnot, right? But to do all that, we need a UI, right? Because for that, we need to programmatically generate the deletes, the posts, the puts, right? We can't do that from the URL, right? From our browser, right? So let's go and create that for us, right? For that, we're going to need a public directory, right? We're going to need an index, Angular, all the whole thing, right? And we're going to have to configure the server to be able to serve these pages, right? So how do we do that? On Wednesday, we went to Express and we searched for body parser. Remember that, right? Also, actually, we need to host the public, right? We need to public. Oh, wait a minute. Public. Where's the first one? Okay, there it is, right? We need to configure here to be able to host a page. So let's configure our local server to do this. Let's configure our local server. So I'm going to say, here it is. Now we can host public pages. Let's make sure that we can do that. Let's create a public directory here. Let's say new add. Let's say public, right? And let's create a very simple HTML page. Just make sure that we can host that. So index.html. And in here, we would say h1 hello from index.html, right? Yes? Let's run it locally, see if it works. If we hit our server now, our local server with no argument, with nothing, it goes hello from right. But remotely, we can't do that, right? If we say it's still saying hello world, right? Because it has the old code, so we have to push this remote to the to synchronize, right? So let's do that. Let's look at the git status to see what has changed so far. We modified server.js. We have a new directory, public directory, right? I'm also going to remove server copy. I don't, it's bothering me. I'm just going to remove that. So git status. It says I have deleted the copy, right? We have modified the server, and we have this new public, right? Because we have a new file, new directory, we're going to add git status again, and indeed we have a new we have modified it and we have new file. We're going to add everything. Oh, we did do that, right? Yeah, we did. So we're going to commit. We're going to say we can see the changes, right? We can say git diff of the server, and because I added it. I lost my diffs. All right, never mind. I'll do it later. So I'm going to commit and give it a comment saying that added web service endpoints for find all and find by one, find by ID. What else do we do? Added public directory. All right, and then I'm going to hit push. All right, so this is going to stop the server and restart the server. Right now, I think it's going pretty quickly. We don't have any new modules, and we don't have any new libraries, so it goes pretty fast. So if we go back, and this is our remote, and we say if we refresh, notice that it's now it's hosting the same content on both machines, right, locally and remotely. Everybody okay? All right. Let's see if we can add all the static content. I believe I already have everything under downloads. Let me see if I can go to downloads. So under public, I want to put all the Bootstrap stuff, right? Plus, I want to add the Angular thing. Right there it is. Right, I'm going to copy that into here. I need the jQuery stuff. jQuery. So I'm going to. Oops, what happened? Oh, okay, I'm going to put it in there. I think we have everything we need. Let's go to index and let's refresh our project. So we have everything there. We got the JavaScript stuff. We have the fonts, the CSS. So in our index page, the only thing we need to do is, make sure that we have an Angular application. We're going to create a small application, a little JavaScript, right? We're going to say app.js, and in here we're gonna let's see, we're going to do var app is going to be Angular module, and this is a what is this? It's kind of like a content management system, right? So CS app, content CM app, content management. And for now, we're going to keep it simple, so I'm not depending on any other module. And I'm going to have a controller that I call CM controller. And it's going to be function, we use scope. And we're going to say, we're going to send to the client, to the UI, we're going to say hello, right? I'm going to say hello from CM controller. Right, in the UI, right, we're going to so we're going to call this CM app. We're going to load all the libraries we need. We've been doing this, right, for a while, so we know how this works, right? So link, href, CSS, bootstrap, there it is, rel, style sheet, right? And then we have scripts, we have source. We're going to load jQuery first, just because Bootstrap depends on it, right? So first, let's load JavaScript, and then we're going to load Bootstrap. There it is. And then we're going to load the Angular. There it is. And then the Angular route, which we're not using right now. And finally, our application. Okay? Yes? We're going to say that this is my app called, what do we call it? CM app, is that what we called it? Then we're going to have a div class container, and this is going to be controlled by my CM controller. And my CM controller is saying hello. That's what it says, right? Hello. Yep. All right, so let's see if this works locally. Let's see. So locally, I'm going to refresh. It says hello from CM controller. So yes, we have a boilerplate Angular application working locally, right? Let's push that to the server, make sure that it's working on the server. So I'm going to say git status. It looks like we have tons of new files in there. We're going to add them all. Git add everything. So it added them to the local repository. These are all the new files. So we have a whole bunch of files. We changed index. We're going to commit saying that added Angular, jQuery, and Bootstrap. Okay, and I'm going to push. All right. So we should be able to retrieve the data just like we can locally. Okay, or should we? Remember, one thing is to do this locally, and one thing is to do this remotely, right? Remember that if we're because the way it would work is that the JavaScript would download, right? And then that JavaScript is downloaded from a particular domain, and then it has to go back and retrieve data, right? Using Ajax. And we've had trouble doing this earlier, right? A couple weeks ago, we were trying to get data from where? From IMDb, right? And we had to use a hack, right? We had to use JSON-P, correct? What about now? Are we going to need to use JSON-P? Let's see. So let's see locally to see if it's this loads. Okay, hello from Cliff. So all right, so we have Angular running on both machines. Yes, all right, we're synchronized. All right, so locally, the app basically wants to go fetch data from the server, right? And what we did on Wednesday, we did something like this, right? We said, get from website, right? And then dot success function, the response, and this were the websites. We're going to send the websites to the UI. So we're sending the websites, and in the index, we're just going to render those, right? We're going to just say websites. So locally, let's see how that works. Locally. Okay, so that didn't quite work. Did I misspell something? Websites. I'm sorry? Oh, thank you. Yes. So this is API REST website. Thank you. Okay, let's try that again. Still didn't work. Let me see let me try and debug this. It's complaining, saying, what's it complaining about? Oh, HTTP is not defined. I never pass HTTP service to the controller. So let's do that. Okay, this is something that the IDE would catch, right? And again, server-side support is fairly fairly powerful in IDEs, and more IDEs are supporting also a lot of the client side, right? There's some newer IDEs that are very powerful and would catch these things, right? And it would highlight, it would even suggest to you, do you want me to, add it to your parameter, right? Because it knows what framework you're working on, right? We're working on Visual Studio with no additional plugins that make it aware of any of these other frameworks, right? So all these are we have to catch ourselves. Anyway, so okay, it looks like it's working. It's retrieving it. Now notice that I'm doing just a get, right? And this get makes sense. It's okay, right? Notice that I'm not using JSONP, right? So a couple of weeks ago, we were doing JSONP. Why are we using a get here and not JSONP? Well, the reason is that as we might have seen on Wednesday, right? This JavaScript is being downloaded from localhost, right? And it's going back for data also to localhost, right? 127.0.0.1, right? So it's fine. The browser checks to see the domains. It says, oh, you are trying to retrieve data from the same place that you were downloaded. And then it's okay. I'll let you through. But is this going to work if I post it remotely? If it's running on here and this is running on that domain. Well, let's find out, right? So let's see, git status. So I've modified this, and what is it? Git. I can see my differences. It says, okay, so I'm rendering websites from the web service, right? All right, so let's commit this. So git commit retrieve websites from web service and render in UI. So I'm going to push this. So what do you think? It's going to work? Is it going to be able to retrieve the data? Yes? No? Okay, so let's go. So this is the remote. I'm just going to refresh this. All right, it was able to retrieve the data, right? The reason it's working is that, so the JavaScript is downloaded, right? The JavaScript is downloaded. It's now copied and running on my machine, right? And it's going back to the same domain where the JavaScript file was downloaded from, right? So the browser doesn't complain and says, oh, okay, you are generating a request from the same file that you downloaded from, right? It's the same domain. It checks the two domains. It's the same. It doesn't complain, right? If it wasn't the same, we would have had to do something else. We would have had to do like JSONP, right? Okay. You know, if I try to do the same thing here, and right, and I try to do the get, and try to go to that other domain, some other domain, right? http://Google something, blah 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 blah. The browser's going to stop me. It says nope, can't do that. It's not the same domain where you were downloaded from, right? Actually, in Google, probably there is no issue because Google does supply the headers, saying that it is okay. They're okay with cross domain. But anyway, the one we were using on last week, the movie API, right, didn't allow us to do this. Anyway, everyone okay? Everyone still okay? All right, so let's render this quick so that we can do things with this. So for this, I'll render it as a table, right? And T body and then T row. We're going to say we're going to repeat. Wait, T. Why is it not TR and G? Repeat. Oh, okay. Website and websites. And in here, we're going to say TD, just a name. So let's try this locally. Notice that I'm not. Oops. Well, in this case, I did restart the server, right? But to make changes, ooh, what's going on? Is it not called name? Oh, website.name, right? Notice that I made changes to the UI, right? And it works even though I didn't restart the server, right? Because there was no need. I changed something that was static content, right? For static content modifications, I don't need to restart the server, right? So we want to be able to delete, so we'll add maybe a button here to delete. So this is button class button danger, and this is span class. Let's go to Bootstrap for that. And so we'll use this. And I'm also going to push it to the right. Oops. Why are you not seeing that? Oh, shoot. Okay, and why are you pulling right? Oh, because it is the button who's pulled right, not the glyphicon. Okay. And if I click on this, I want to delete, right? So I'm going to say click. This says remove, and we're going to pass the index. And here we're just going to say $http.delete. Oh wait, no, sorry. We need the event handler first, right? So scope.remove. It takes, there's a function that receives an index, and we're gonna do an HTTP delete, right? That's what we did on Wednesday, right? Delete, and we're gonna go to the URL API/website, and we're gonna provide an index, right? The index, and the success is that it's gonna respond with us with the remaining sites, right? And we're gonna push those sites back to the UI for rendering, right? Notice that this API, this URL doesn't exist in the server, so let's create that, right? So we're going to say app.delete, and it's API./website, right? And then the ID that we want to remove, right? And we're going to basically what we're going to do. We're going to say websites.splice. At the index, which is request.params.id, and we want to splice just one, and we want to respond with the remaining websites. Okay, let me restart the server, see if that works. It's not working. Why is it not working? Let's see. Index. Okay, I mistyped that. Index. All right, so let's reload that. Notice that I only changed the front end, so I didn't have to restart. Okay, looks like it's working, right? So that's working. Let's wait until later to push. Well, let's commit, right? It's good to commit every time we add a brand new feature, right? So that we can always backtrack and go back to where we were before we broke something. So let's do a commit. Once we've tested it, always get status to see if there are any new files that we've added. We can look at what we've done, so we can see. So we added tables for rendering, right? We've added a remove event handler in the UI, and we added a delete a website endpoint on the server, right? So we can commit that and say, you know, rendered sites as table, added delete button and handler, added delete web service endpoint. Okay, we commit. We don't have to push, right? But at least we were keeping track of our progress. So the next thing we might want to do is create a brand new one. So let's create a brand new one. For that, we need a form, right? So let's add a form in our header. So we say t head, right? And in our head, we're going to say tr and then th. We'll create an input field here of form control, and I'm going to tie it to the controller, right? By model, I'm going to say that this is a website or site's name, right? A site's name. What else? What else do we need? Oops. We need a button, right, to actually add it. So we'll do th. Oops, th. And let's copy the button at the bottom, right? And let's paste it in here. And let's just change the look and feel here. So instead of danger, we'll use success, which is green. Instead of remove, we'll add, I think it's plus, right? And we're going to call the method add. And we're going to pass as an argument the site, right, that we are adding, right? For that, now we need to go to our app event handler. And we're going to say scope.add is going to be function index. So that's going to be called whenever we click on the add button. And we're going to, how do we send data when we create something? We use post, right? Post, and we're going to send it to API. Notice that we're following the RESTful API format, right? We want to create something, we're posting. We want to delete something, we use delete. We want to read something, we use get, right? And for the get, there's two versions. One, give me all of them. So I don't provide I don't give an ID, meaning I want all of them. If I want one particular one, I'll give you the ID of the one I want to read, right? So find all or find by ID. You can have many more readers, right? You know, find by age, find by genre, find by whatever, right? Or find between, and then you provide arguments, yes? But the standard ones, the ones that are the minimum ones that we usually use is, you know, find all and find by ID, at least those. Okay. And it's a website. So notice that it's almost the same URL for all these, right? And we're going to pass the data, and the data that we're going to pass is the site that we're passing as an argument from the form, yes? And we're going to pass it as an argument. There it is. And it's going to the success will be a function that responds with all the sites, including the new one. Okay. So we're going to do we're going to send all of them again to the website's response to be re-rendered, including the new one we added. If we try this locally, it's not going to work because we don't have in the server anything listening for a post, right? So let's look at what it looks like now. If I re-render, right? If I try to put something at post, is going to say there is no post. So on the server, I need to go back and listen into those incoming posts, right? So let's go to the server, back to the server, and say, okay, let me listen in for posts, right? And that post is going to look very much like this get over here, but it's going to be actually posts. I'm going to say post, and the new content is going to be where? In the body of the HTTP request, right? So what we need to do is we're going to say, websites, right? Push whatever's in the body, right? Whatever object's in the body. So that's in the request, that body. But what's going to happen here? The body, right? The server, as it stands, it doesn't know how to parse the body, right? It doesn't know how to parse the body JSON that's embedded in the body to be able to extract it and then put it in the array, right? Let's see what we have so far, though. Let's try this again, and refresh, and we type something and say add. Notice that it's no longer complaining, right? Because the post was received. And notice that there is no name. See that? Even though I provided the name, even though if we look at the network, I believe we passed everything correctly. Where's our post? Here's a post. Here's a post, right? And if we look at the header, we says yes, it's a post. The URL is correct, and the data was good. That's the data I sent. So the data was sent correctly, but the response, it came back with, the 4 sites, the hard-coded sites, plus the 4th element is null, right? So the request.body is null, right? There is no body. So why? Because it doesn't know how to parse it, right? To fix that, we need to go back and configure our server so that it can parse the body. For that, we'll go to we're going to go to Express, and we're going to search for body parser, right? So find body parser. Okay, there it is. So it's these 4 lines or 5 lines of code. Loading 2 libraries, okay, for being able to parse stuff from the body, be able to parse things if you're submitting from a form, right, multi-part form, right, and the configuration of those 2 libraries. I'm going to paste that locally, but notice that so this is going to work locally. Well, actually, no, we need to install these libraries. We don't have those libraries, right? These are not in node modules, right? If we do ls node modules, we only have Express. That's the only library that we've installed. We do not have body parser or multer, right? So it's going to complain, right? I mean, if I run this now, it's going to say I don't see body parser. It's not there. Okay, so I need to install it. If I install it locally, I'm also going to have to install it remotely, right? So there's 2 ways that we can do this. What we could do is edit the package JSON and say that we depend on body parser, right, and multer, and then rerun npm install. It's going to read package JSON and it's going to install those 2 libraries, right? Or since I don't remember what version of body parser we would need, I'm going to leave it up to npm to figure that out, right? So I'm going to do npm install body parser. Okay, that's how we did it on Wednesday. Remember that? But I'm going to add an additional switch here to say, hey, install it and record the fact that we depend on this. Okay, meaning we make an entry in the package JSON file, right? To remember that the project depends on this library. So we're going to say save. So it's going to install body parser and it's going to make an entry into package JSON. If we go back and look at this, notice that Visual Studio has detected that the file has changed, right? You want to reload it? Yes. Notice that the only new difference is that body parser is now listed. See that? Okay. So I guess 1.12 is a version of body parser and that is compatible with Express. Make sure that the versions are correct. And we also need Multer. Right, so we're going to do npm install Multer, save. And again, it's going to install the library and it's going to make an entry into package.json. There it is. I'm going to reload and Multer is there now. Okay, everybody good? So now if I run my server, now it's not going to complain that the modules are not there. Okay, the modules are there now. And if I go back to my app and I refresh, now if I add something, notice that it's being added, right? So now it's working. It's being parsed from the body. It's being added to my data model, right? Okay, and I can still remove and whatnot. Everybody okay? All right. All right. So I think we have enough features to send it over to the server. Let's see if anything different, any new files. No. Package.json was modified. The index and HTML was modified. What do we do in the index? Get diff public index. We added that we can iterate over. Oh yeah, the form. We added the form, right? The new form. Okay, all right. So we added an entry, right, for body parser and Multer. We added the form and we added the event handler for adding, and we loaded the body parser, and we a web service endpoint, right? Okay, so let's git commit. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to say added post support. And I'm going to push. Now this push is going to be a little more involved, right? Because package.json changed, right? What's going to happen is that notice that it's installing a whole bunch of things, right? So it parsed the package.json. It's going to run npm on package.json, and it's going to install remotely. Notice that it's installing body parser remotely. See that, right? And install also Multer remotely. Okay, so that now we're synchronized, right? We have the same libraries locally and remotely, even though I did not upload any libraries. We know that we have the same library, we have the same dependencies. Everybody okay? All right. All right. So if I go and go to my remote machine, I do a refresh. Okay, it's rendering the sites, right? The same sites that we had earlier. We can remove, we can add. So it looks like post and things is working. Right, delete is working, get is working. The only thing is maybe put. We haven't looked at put, right? Modifications of this. All right. So everybody okay? Everybody still with me? Right. Okay. All right. So let's play around with a couple more things, right? Let's create our data model and make it a little more interesting, right? Right now we just have one type of entity, one type of piece of data, right? One class, you should say, right? Or one table where we would store this in a database, right? And the schema of this data, of this array is very simple, right? It just has a string name, an attribute name, and that's it, right? So oftentimes to make this, schemas become are much more interesting if you have relationships between schemas, right? Maybe you have a website. Websites are made up of what? Made up of maybe of pages, right? One website has many pages, right? So in classical relational model, the way you would represent that is perhaps as a separate array or a separate collection, right, of pages, and somehow pages would need to know that they are participating in a parent-child relationship, right? In SQL databases, the way you do that is that the children have foreign keys back to their parents, right? That's a classical way of representing, a one-to-many relationship here, right? But we're not using a SQL representation here. We are in the object world, okay? there's no need to use the representation of a relational database, because we have here, this is a fully object-oriented language, right? We're not persisting this anywhere, right? More typically, if you're using an object-oriented language like Java or C# or JavaScript, right? You would say that perhaps a website has an array, right, of pages, right, or a list of pages, right, or a collection of pages. So maybe the way you might want to represent that as an instance, you might say that you have pages, and you have the data for pages under here, right? And then your pages might be something like the page might also have a name, right? So this is page 1, 1. And again, let's keep it simple. So this is page 1, 2. Just so that this is page 1 for site 1, right? And then page 1, 2, 3 for site 1. Make sense? And you might have something similar for site 2, right? Where you might have page, and this would be 2, 2, 2. Make sense? Right? And maybe you have another one here, and this would be maybe 3. This would be 4. Or maybe this one is empty. This one says I'm empty. I don't have any pages. Okay, right? And you can keep going, right? You can keep going. Pages. What do pages have? Pages might have widgets, right? Has a header widget, a footer widget, right? Maybe has a left-hand side widget. Maybe has a form widget. Maybe has a YouTube video widget. Maybe has an image widget. Has all sorts of things, right? There's lots of widgets that make up the page, right? So a page might have, again, widgets. Okay, so this is a very hierarchical data model, right? This is something that you might use if you're representing using XML, right? In XML, you don't have referential like foreign key primary, although you do have IDs and you have things that refer to IDs, right? But nevertheless, you represent it in a hierarchical structure. You have a root, right? And then you have children embedded in there, and then you have children of children of children, right? And so here you have another widget, so name, and the name might be widget 1, 1, 1, right? And this would be widgets 2 and 3. And maybe none of the other ones have widgets. So all these widgets are empty with jets. None of these have widgets. None of these pages have widgets. They're empty pages. Okay, everybody good? So if I restart the server locally, right, and I go back to my UI and I refresh, nothing changes, right? The same sites are there. The same sites are there. But if we look at the data that's coming through, you'll notice that if I refresh, here's websites, right? Notice that in the data that's coming through, I do get the array of sites, but notice that each site includes the actual pages in there. You see that? The pages are there, and that first page has also widgets in there. You see that? So I am getting everything I need, right, to be able to render and participate. I have at the client, I have a copy of the data model, right, of the objects that are being represented in the server. So I can do all sorts of manipulations here, right, and make sure that things are in sync. For instance, one of the things that I could do here is that, say I add here an edit. Right, say I have an edit, right? One of the editing features that I might want to add, right? Let me add an edit button. Let's add an edit button, right? Might be that I can see the details about that page, right? About that particular website, including all the pages that make up that website, right? So let's see. Well, what do you select here? So this is remove. Let me add a select. Let me add a select. So instead of danger, this is maybe a warning, right? And maybe I'm going to use maybe a pencil for you to select it. And maybe this will have we'll call select on the controller, and the controller can then the controller can then listen in for that, right? Can listen in and say scope dot select its function, and then the site that was used, right? No, not the index, the site, the actual site, website. I called it website. The actual website that was used, right? Okay. Or should be the index. Let's see. Should it be the index? Maybe it should be the index, huh? Yeah. Let me pass the index. It's safer. Oh, what I do? Index. So here I'm going to pass the index. So I'm going to keep track of the currently selected. So scope dot selected site is it's null, right? It doesn't exist. I don't have a selected site, but I can keep track of it by saying that it will be the scope websites sub index, right? That's the currently selected website. I might also keep track of the selected index. When I say selected index, I'm just going to remember that index that you passed me, right? Oh, actually, I don't need the $sign here. Okay. Right. So I can select it, and then on index here on index.html, I can display down below. I can display the selected site. Is that what I called it? Yes. And so if I run this and I select, notice that below, right, I have the object of the currently selected website. Do you see that? Okay. I must have misspelled the button. What happened to the button? Did I misspell it? Oh, it's not select. Is it pencil? Do you remember if it's pencil? There it is, pencil. There it is, so it's pencil. So if I select, right, that's the currently one that's selected. So I could render over here in index.html. I could say maybe H1, right? I can say H2 selected website, right? Or actually, no, maybe I want to display the information about that website, maybe the applications for that website, okay? And I can say select the website dot, no, not applications. What do we have, pages? The pages, sorry, pages. The pages inside of the website, you can say dot pages. Right, so if I select this, these are the pages there, page 1, 2, 3, right, with widgets, pages. This one has also pages. This one have no pages, it's empty, right? Actually, probably I don't want to even display anything unless there are actual pages, right? So we could put this whole thing, right, and not show it. You can say only show it if the pages, if the length of that array, right, is greater than 0. I only show this if this is true, right? If this is true. If it's true, then yes, show me pages and then the selected pages, right? So if I render, notice that I haven't selected anything. Notice that pages is not showing, right? But here we have pages, no pages, so it disappears. So it's nice and clean. Okay, that makes sense? If I do have pages, maybe I want to render them. So let's render these real quick. Again, with table. So this is class, table, table striped, T body. Okay, and this is TR, and this is ng repeat of pages in where? In selected pages, right? This. And here we can have TD. It'll be just a name, right? Pages. Oh, page. Dot name. I misspelled this. Right. So let's see if that works. Okay, there they are. There's the pages. As I select through these, and they're gone. Ever okay? All right. Well, how about I want to be able to modify these, right? Maybe I want to create. I want to remove a page from a website. Okay, let's do that. How would we do that? Let's create a button. Let's create a button for removal. What do we have removed? Here it is, right? I'll copy this one. It's already red. Oh no, I need the whole TR. Wait, what? Oh, I need the TD, right? I need a TR, TD. I need a TD. And in here, I'll put the button. There it is. And what am I going to be removing? I'll call this if I'm going to pass the index of the page, right? That I want to remove, right? So I'll say remove what? Remove page. Yes. Remove page. I'll pass. What do I need to pass? Let's see. The index, right? The index of the page that I want to remove. I think that's correct, right? So in my app, I'm going to listen in for that incoming event handler. So it says remove. What did I call it? Remove page, right? Remove page, and then this is a function page index. Right, I have the page index. So how would we remove it? We want to go back to the server and modify the database or whatever data model, right? And remove that from the data model, correct? Right? We would have to do something like this. HTTP that we need to do a delete, right? And definitely we need to do API. What are we modifying? We're modifying a child of some parents. So we first have to identify who the parent is, right? So it would be website. What website is this? It's a currently selected website, right? And we have that where? In scope dot selected index. That's the currently selected website. Plus, then we want to remove what? Pages, right? A page. So page is a child of websites, right? And I want to remove a particular page, right? Which page? It'll be the index that I pass in, page index. Okay. So this format for the URL is very typical in RESTful applications, right? Where you can establish the relationships between parent-children, right? And say, and the URL uniquely identifies any one entity in your object graph. So you have an object graph. It could be one-to-many, one-to-one, many-to-many, right? And you should be able to identify any element, any entity, with this kind of URL. Make sense? So here we have uniquely identify which page I want to remove. Okay? Notice that we don't have this in the server, right? So I say dot success, right? So hopefully this will come back with a response, and we're going to say scope websites equal the response. And now the website that come back hopefully will not have that page as part of that website that we were trying to remove. Yes? Right, so let's see how we can handle this on the server. Let's go on the server. On the server, we want to listen for a delete, so app.delete. And the URL looks something like, oops. It looks something like this, right? So let me just copy that. There it is, right? It looks something like API website, right? Some index. So I'll call this maybe site ID. Okay, that's a good name. Followed by /page, followed by page index, which is an argument. All right, so these two are placeholders, which are going to be passed in as part of the path parameter, right? If it's passed in the parameter, is referred to as a path parameter, right? If it's passed as a query, question mark and then name value, is refers to as a query parameter, right? And we have both available through the request object, right? If it's path parameter, we say path.params. Okay. If it's a query, it says request.query. All right, so we have if the URL we send has this pattern, we're going to call this function as request and response, right? And what are we going to do? Let's see. What are we going to do? We're going to do splicing, right? What are we going to splice? We're going to say websites sub request.params, right? Params dot site ID, right? That's the index into the website that we are editing, right? Once we have that, I want to go into the pages array under there, right? So now I have the pages array, yes. Now that the pages array that I want now, I'm going to say dot. I want to splice, right, the page index out of there, right? So this will be request.params.page index, page index, right? Page index, and I just want to splice just one. Yes, and finally, I just send everything back, right? Say response.json.websites. Now, I don't have to send everything back. We're being kind of lazy here, right? Where we're just sending the entire array. I mean, that's a very chatty web service, right? We're just sending the entire collection. That's very expensive, right? And sending all this data across. More typically, what you would do is just return. You would be much more granular and say, oh, you just removed this page, right, from this website. So typically, what you might want to do is just return, right, that one website, right, that does not contain that page, right? But again, we're using a pretty chatty web service here, right? Sending lots of data back and forth. Okay, so let's see if this works. If this has broken. I need to restart the server, and I'll refresh this, and let me open the console just to see if this fails. We can see something. So let's select this site over here, and we have the pages, and let's remove this page. Okay, let's see what happened. Did it complain? Let's see the network if it actually sent the delete. Okay, so it did send the delete, but it looks like it looks right. Website 0, page 1. So that looks right. Why didn't not work? Let me refresh, see if the page is still there. Oh, it did remove it. It did remove it. But this didn't. Okay, so let's see. So maybe we need to update our index page, our controller. So I'm going to send the websites, and I'm going to update. I'm going to also update pages, and that's going to be what? It's going to be response, right? Response Those are the websites, right? Sub scope selected. Selected what? Selected index, right? Sub pages. Yes? All right, let's do that. So we're updating that array, right? That was used. I'm going to reload. Let's see if this works. So that one, let me remove that. Oh, crap, still not working. Did I refresh? But it is removing it. Does this complain? Let's go console. Console. Remove that. It's not complaining. But it's not doing it. Why is it not doing it? Is this what we called it, pages? Oh, you know what? It's selected site.pages, right? Selected sites.pages. Okay. So really, this should be selected site, right? Selected site is equal to response.selected index, and we don't need the pages. Let's try that again. Start again. Okay, it's working, right? So it's removing it. We can restart the server. Let's see if it works. So click here. I remove and it updates correctly. I refresh. Let's see. Yeah, it's working correct. So finally, let's push it to the, we can say git status. We don't have anything new, so git commit the ham pages, right? So git push. And finally, let's see if it works remotely. Come on, okay. So remotely, this is remotely. I'm going to say refresh. If I click here, I see the pages. To remove, it works. If we go to page site 2, I have 3, but site 1 still has just 2. Right? So it looks like it's working, right? But you see the pattern, right, of how to create RESTful APIs. The API that we're using for My Films API, that is not a RESTful API, right? Even though they might market it as a RESTful API, it doesn't follow this pattern, right? Where you have this name value, all these child-parent relationships. Okay, okay. We're gonna leave it here, and I will share this in GitHub with you. And actually, we'll cover next time how you can share with us your code, right? Because no longer are we going to be pushing things to Net4. We're going to be pushing it to OpenShift or whatever host provider you want to use. Okay. All right. Thank you.